Hey guys, what's up? Today we're talking about the puppet pin animation project here in After Effects. So let's go ahead and get started. I've already imported all of my assets. I have my 3 characters and my background as well as some music. And so what I'm going to do first is create a new composition. And if I haven't really changed anything in a while, I can use all the same settings. So 1920 by 1080, 23976 frame rate. And I'm going to only make this probably about maybe 15 seconds, and then the background color. Okay, so here we go. Here's our composition. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my background. And you'll notice that this particular background is wider than the composition, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to animate it so that it moves across the screen. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just bring this to one side of the background, and I'm going to come down here on my layers, and I'm going to open up the position parameter by pushing P on the keyboard. And to start the animation, I'm going to click the stopwatch, and then I'm just going to move forward probably 10 seconds or so. And then I'm going to move my background. And if I hold shift while I'm doing it, then it's not going to move up or down. And so that looks pretty good. And so now I have the background that is animating left to right. Okay. Now let's bring in a character and actually get to the puppet pin tool. So I'm going to bring in the crab. And I'm going to grab the puppet tool. So up here on the toolbar on the very far right, you'll see the puppet pin tool. And essentially what the puppet pin does is it acts like, I guess in this case, it acts kind of like joints. And so anywhere that I put a pin acts either as a pivot point or kind of like a handle that I can move around the pivot point. So on my crab here, I'm going to just put a pin in each place that I either want to animate or pivot around. So I'm going to, everywhere there would be a joint, and they make these yellow dots. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in to get real specific here. Okay, so here I have quite a number of pins in my character. And now it's time to start animating them. And you got to animate them one at a time, and you can do it manually, but this little trick tends to make it go a little bit faster. So I want to make it look like the crab is walking. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this pin at the end of his, I don't know, what do you call those? Tentacle things? Feet? And I'm going to hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a PC, and you'll notice that the cursor turns into an arrow with a stopwatch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and I'm going to drag that around until I get to the point where I want to stop. So now what happens if I was to scrub forward, see how his legs kind of move in there? And so that's essentially what we want to do with each of these legs. So again, Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and then just click and hold on that puppet pin, and then just move it how you want it to be animated. All right, so I got each point that I wanted to animate animated on my character, and so if I hit the space bar, then it kind of looks like he is walking down the street there. So now what I want to do is I'm going to add a second character. Let's add the dolphin. And obviously I'd go through the same process with the dolphin. And I would put puppet pins in each point that I essentially want to animate. I can animate those points. One thing that I do want to do is I want to make it so that the crab is walking down the street and then he meets up with the dolphin here at the used bookstore. And so the way that it has it now is it looks like the crab is walking and the dolphin is just more or less floating along with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my playhead in my timeline to where I want them to meet. Okay, I'm going to position my dolphin here right in front of the used bookstore. The next thing I'm going to do is actually parent the dolphin to the background so that the dolphin will move with the background, and it's actually pretty easy. So if you just go to this pick whip right here, I just click and drag it to the thing that I want it to parent with. In this case, the Market Street background. And then I let go, and you can see here that the parent now is that third layer, the Market Street background. So if I was to move my playhead, now the dolphin moves with the background. So now it looks like the crab is walking very slowly to the dolphin. Next thing I'm going to do is bring in my next character. In this case, it's the rabbit. And I want him to kind of walk behind the crab. I just want him to look like he's just kind of in the background, walking around. Okay. So I'm going to put him off here. And then I'm going to do two things to him. Number one is I'm going to animate all of his points with the puppet pin. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Great. So now that I've got him all animated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put him just off screen here. And then I'm going to animate him across the screen just kind of like I did the background. So I'm going to go to my rabbit. I'm going to bring up my position. So P on the keyboard. I'm going to click the stopwatch to start the animation. And then I'm going to come forward. And then by the time that they meet up, the rabbit should have gone past. So there he is in the background, just kind of galloping along like bunny rabbits do. And then they meet up. So once I've got my animation pretty much complete, then there's just a couple more things that we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new composition, leave it all the same settings. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to fade out of the little animation that I just created. And if I was to do that on the same composition, I would have to go through each layer and manually fade out and make sure everything's the same and it's working, and that's just kind of a pain. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this comp one down into my layers, and you'll notice now that it's a single layer instead of all four of layers of the other things. Now if I wanted to edit something in that, then I can just double click and it pulls up everything inside that composition and I can edit and do whatever. Comp 2 is where I'm actually going to, this is what I'm going to export. So to fade out, I'm just going to bring my playhead here to about 11 seconds. And then I'm going to hit T on the keyboard and that brings up the opacity. And then I can keyframe the opacity. So again, hit the stopwatch to start it, go to the end of the composition, and then just change my value to 0. So now, at the end, there's a pretty decent little fade out. Excellent. So last thing to do is add the music. So I'm just going to bring this song down in here. And if I bring my playhead to the top, because my song is way longer than my composition, if I hold Shift, Command, or Control on a Mac and D, then what it does is it splits that layer where that playhead is. And then I can just delete that one, and then I'm just messing with this much. And I can do the same thing that I did with the fade out on the music, okay? But if I hit this drop down arrow into the audio, we're just messing with the audio levels here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the stopwatch and then change my value. And you don't want to go super low, like all the way down to like 192, because that's just too much. It's going to fade out too quickly. So I'm just going to bring it to like, let's just try -50 and see what that. So there you have it. There's the puppet pin animation. Now it's your turn. We'll see you next time.